Hello everyone. This is a very short video lecture on the play Caesar and Cleopatra by Bernard Shaw. In this lecture, we will be discussing the historical background to the play and uh, and also the characterization of Julius Caesar by Shaw. There is a significant difference between Shaw's Caesar and the Caesar of history and also Shakespeare's Caesar. So, we'll be discussing Julius Caesar's characterization in this play in detail, and also we'll be giving, as I mentioned earlier, I'll be providing you with a very brief historical background to the play. So, okay, the relation or rather the power relation between Egypt and Rome has a very long history. It begins with Ptolemy I, the reign of Ptolemy I, probably in 304 BC, uh, and ends with the death of Antony and Cleopatra. So in 304 BC, we have Ptolemy I, who declared or declares himself the king of Egypt. He was a general in the army of Alexander the Great. So by the time Ptolemy V comes into power, Rome sends a nobleman to Egypt to act as a guardian to the young king. That is Ptolemy V. So as we can see, there has always been uh, Rome or Rome's power as a uh, support to the reign of Ptolemy I. So Egypt, during the reign of Ptolemy V, we see that Egypt becomes an independent state, but it is independent only in name. It is hence under the surveillance of Roman Empire. Uh, by the reign of Ptolemy V. Even when during the reign of Ptolemy I, there was a significant support provided by Rome. It was only by the reign of Ptolemy V that Roman Empire has a very significant hold on the power and ruling, uh, the procedures of ruling of the Ptolemy V's kingdom. So in the play, we have Cleopatra 7 and Ptolemy 13. So much time has passed in between. Cleopatra 7th and Ptolemy 13th are co-rulers of Egypt, but their mutual dislike. Uh, Ptolemy 13 is younger brother of Cleopatra 7th, and their mutual dislike only aggravates their political rivalry and political problems within the country, within Egypt. Cleopatra is later deposed by Pompey. Pompey was appointed the guardian of young Ptolemy 13th, and they try by the Roman Empire, and they tried to depose Cleopatra, as we have said. Pompey is against Caesar. Like Pompey was appointed by the Roman Empire, but soon he turns against Caesar, tries to capture Egypt for himself, and but Pompey later on is killed by Lucius Septimus, who was also a part of Roman army. Lucius Septimus is part of Roman army stationed in Egypt 3 years earlier to the action that is going to take place in this play, Caesar and Cleopatra. So we have Pompey, who was appointed by the Roman Empire. We have Lucius Septimus, who was also part of army appointed by the Roman Empire, and Lucius kills Pompey. So Lucius Septimus's loyalties are also questionable because he is part of an army that was placed 3 years earlier. We see that by the time the play begins, the Roman soldiers had married local women. Like within a time duration of 3 years, we find that Roman soldiers had married local women, and their loyalties had become divided. They had children and they have become one of Egyptians, like one among Egyptians, rather than completely being loyal towards the Roman Empire. And this army, why was Rome interested in Egypt? That is a question. So Rome's interest in Egypt was because of the fertile Nile Valley. It is an early form of colonization actually. The fertile Nile Valley was the principal source of game for its expanding territories. Rome, which is a which is part of the European continent, uh, has used Egypt as a source of income, a source of gain and profit for expanding its territories. So, the play Caesar and Cleopatra, a historical drama, was written by Shaw in 1898 when British Army occupied Egypt to protect the flow of Western commerce through the recently built Suez Canal. Okay, I hope the background is clear to you. The whole of uh, yeah, the whole history of Ptolemaic rule is very important for this play, for you to understand the play better. So, the setting of the play, Caesar and Cleopatra, is Egypt, and we have in the play we have the end of Ptolemaic rule, which is a significant step towards the foundation of Roman Empire, and it also portrays still continuing pattern of Western interference in the affairs of the Middle East. Okay, yeah, that's it. So, in the play, we have a few actions taking place, like not a few actions, but the actions include Caesar chasing Pompey uh, into Egypt, and he arrives at Egypt. Caesar arrives at Egypt, but Pompey is killed by Lucius Septimus. We don't witness the action of Pompey being killed by Lucius Septimus, but we know that Pompey has been killed. We also come to know that Caesar has arrived along with uh, along with Pompey's crew. Like Pompey has been chased by Caesar. We have Cleopatra, who was later tutored by Caesar. Then we have Ptolemy, who, along with Lucius, stands against Caesar. Ptolemy 13th. And as we mentioned, Cleopatra is Cleopatra 7th, the very famous Cleopatra. Pothinus is killed by Tatatia under the command of Cleopatra, and Cleopatra rises to be a leader of or a ruler of Egypt under the tutorship of uh, Caesar, and Rufio is appointed as governor by Caesar towards the end of the play. Caesar also hints about Mark Antony, whom he promises, whom Caesar towards the end of the play promises Cleopatra that he would send Mark Antony a more suitable choice for Cleopatra. So we also have a hint of Mark Antony in the play. These are the actions, very significant actions that take place in the play, and make sure that you familiarize with all the characters that are present in the play. At least you must be familiar with the significant characters in the play. So, Shaw's characterization of Julius Caesar. We are moving on to the second topic in the lecture. Shaw's characterization of Julius Caesar. Caesar in this play is in his 50s. He is not a young person. He is nearing old age. He is in his 50s. He is bald, which Cleopatra clearly points out. And he stands for humanity in its highest development. Unlike the Egyptians, which is very subtly hinted in the play, unlike Egyptians who are considered as barbarians by the Romans, Julius Caesar is the epitome of humanity. He is a very civilized person. He is very pragmatic, logical, and unsentimental. He is the product of enlightenment, or not enlightenment as such, but he is a humanitarian, or he is well educated and has to be considered as well civilized, unlike the Egyptians who are passionate, which according to them is barbaric. And they are very what their emotions are very basic. The emotions of Egyptians are very basic, unlike the refined emotions of Romans. So Julius Caesar represents the epitome of humanity. He is pragmatic because he is never sentimental. He is not driven by emotions. He ensures he is here in Egypt for ensuring the continuance of the supply of what the products from Nile Valley. He has to ensure that Rome has significant gain in by capturing Egypt. He is here to ensure the continuance of supply of products. He is here to establish the power of Roman Empire over the Egypt, and he is also here to regain the allegiance of his own army along with the allegiance of people of Egypt. So he is very clear about his ideas or goals. He is very pragmatic about it, very logical. He moves only according to his plan, and he resents. He is epitome of humanity, also because he resents unnecessary bloodshed and vengeance. He doesn't fight unnecessarily. He is kind to both Romans and Egyptians. He always, throughout the play, we see that he is trying to educate people rather than establishing power through physical force. He doesn't kill people. He is averse, or he doesn't like bloodshed at all. And also we can see that he is calm, humble, patient, and he is a very enthusiastic listener. He listens to Cleopatra very patiently and very enthusiastically. And he is also a very humble person. Cleopatra doesn't identify him as doesn't understand that he is the Caesar that people have been talking about in the beginning. The meeting of Caesar and Cleopatra is very important. Please go through the text to find the subtle features of that meeting, and it will help you realize how humble Caesar is. Caesar's dressing is also very important. He is not shown in his royal attire at all. So these are very significant, but very subtle, but very significant elements that Shaw uses in his play. So make sure you read that part of the play very clearly. So Shaw's Caesar then is like I've already mentioned his first quality, that he is an epitome of humanity. There are contradictions. We'll come to it towards the end of this lecture. Then we can say that Shaw's Caesar is an extraordinary man, not a very simple, not mm, not not similar to Shakespeare's Caesar or the Caesar we find in the historical texts. Unlike Shakespeare's Caesar, who is overshadowed by other characters like Brutus. In Shakespeare's Caesar, Caesar is a minor character. He appears only in the beginning of the play. He is soon killed by others. He is murdered soon after the play begins, and Brutus overshadows Caesar. So Shaw's Caesar can be called as an improvement over Shakespeare. Even if it cannot be called an improvement, we can actually say that Shaw's Caesar is very different from Shakespeare's Caesar. Shakespeare's Caesar is a self-proclaimer. He continually proclaims himself as the conqueror. So Shaw's portrayal of Caesar is very different. He takes his liberties with that character. He is a Caesar, he is a person. Caesar is a person with an indomitable will, ability to influence other people, capacity to accomplish his purpose, not through physical strength, but through wit and luck. A lot of luck, but through real wit, through the real use of words rather than use of physical strength. Instead of using his techniques, his physical strength and his capabilities as a warrior, Caesar uses his words to influence people and ensure the allegiance of people to him. So, ability to influence other people is also very important because it is clearly visible in the change that is undergone by Cleopatra. One example that I can give you for his ability to influence other people is the change undergone by Cleopatra. You can find a detailed description of the change that Cleopatra undergoes in lecture 2 that is already available. So go through, make sure you go through that lecture also to understand the differences in the character of differences that the character of Cleopatra undergoes. So unlike Caesar's character, which is a flat character, Cleopatra's character is a round character. You can go through it in lecture 2. You can see it in lecture 2. So Caesar Shaw takes the Egyptian war, the war over the power struggle that is going on in Egypt, as the main theme. The war is a most dangerous and difficult war, and it is also a career changing war for Caesar. So Caesar arrives at Egypt. This is what happens in the play. Caesar arrives at Egypt, tries to settle the dispute and collect the taxes. It is using Egypt, the taxes collected in Egypt that Rome ensures its gains, ensures its profits. So there is a dispute among so many. There is a dispute in Egypt at so many levels. Like there is a dispute between Cleopatra and Ptolemy. There is a dispute between the Romans itself, like between Lucius and Pompey. There is again a dispute between the Egyptians and the Romans. So as there are disputes at different level, which Caesar arrives at Egypt and tries to settle. Soon, Caesar is entangled in a dangerous conflict with the Egyptian soldiers. Roman army of occupation and city mob is also seen. The situation turns against Caesar. Although there is a Roman army stationed in Egypt, as we have discussed in the historical while discussing the historical background, I have made it clear that the allegiance of the Roman soldiers are now doubtful. It is not completely towards Caesar. So this makes Caesar's struggle in Egypt more difficult one. So we have the entire situation in Egypt turning against Caesar. He is outnumbered. The wind is unfavorable to him. All his communication through sea is also cut off. So there is environmental problems like the wind being against Caesar, and there is also situation among the soldiers which is also unfavorable to Caesar. But Caesar is shown as a very resourceful person, a brilliant improviser. He never keeps a prisoner. He is known known for his personal bravery, and he does it with all the passion that he has. He swims and um, uh, tries to achieve what he intends to achieve rather than hesitating for a single moment. He doesn't hesitate at all. If he needs something, if he wants something, he makes sure that he gets it. So he's passionate, he wins the war with his passion and his personal bravery. So he's a very resourceful person, capable of making any unfavorable situation favorable towards him. So this is a very important quality of Shaw's Caesar. He is not a person that easily gives up. Caesar in the play is shown as a very dominant male character, and he overshadows Cleopatra, unlike many of Shakespeare's play. And his wit and his ability to influence people is also stressed very well by Shaw. So these characters, this his ability to win a war, even when the entire situation is against him, is very important and is very brilliantly portrayed in uh, Shaw's play. So there are also contrasting elements in the characterization of Caesar. So Caesar is not who he actually appears to be. He is a very different person. He is very subtle. He has a he has deeper instincts, unlike many other characters in the play. But we can see that Cleopatra, towards the end of the play, becomes much like Caesar, which is also discussed in lecture 2. We don't have much time here to spend for that. So, coming back to Caesar, we see that Caesar is not a very simple, uh, very very simple character. He is a very subtle character. Like he has deeper instincts, and he is a conqueror. So, what are the contrasting elements? Number one is that he is shown as a conqueror who is supposed to conquer using cruel power and bloodshed, physical power and bloodshed. The war is for conquering the land. But Caesar, portrayed by Shaw, is averse of killing and murdering people. He doesn't like bloodshed. He doesn't like to be a murderer. He doesn't like to shed blood at all. He is more towards influencing people through his words rather than using his sword. Then, number two, another contrasting element is that he is dazzled by the eyes of women, but his passion is completely under control. Unlike the unlike the Caesar portrayed by Shakespeare or others, Caesar is not influenced by others, not even by Cleopatra. Okay, he is completely under control of his emotions, his instincts. He openly fondles Cleopatra, but even when she tries to coax him, he openly says that she means nothing to him. He makes it clear to Cleopatra that their relationship is one of tutor and student. He doesn't fall for the uh, flirt flirtations of Cleopatra. He encourages Cleopatra, but stays always as a tutor. He openly says that Cleopatra means nothing to him, and he would hold the hand of a soldier than hers. That is a very important comment made by uh, Caesar in the play, which makes clear that he is not at all influenced by Cleopatra. He seems to be influenced by Cleopatra, but there is no way that Cleopatra can influence him. Her beauty doesn't dazzle him. He seems to be dazzled by her, but he's clear about his intentions. He's clear about his ideas, his goals, why he is there in Egypt. So he makes sure that he fulfills his duties rather than falling in love with Cleopatra or anybody else. Hmm. And he remains a tutor to Cleopatra throughout. Then he is a deceptively simple man. He concentrates on conquering and acquiring wealth. He seems to be a very simple man who is averse of killing and all, but he is not completely uninterested in conquering countries or regions. He is here in Egypt primarily to ensure that the profits from Egypt reach Rome, reach his empire. That he is here to ensure that his empire, Roman Empire, continues to gain from Egypt, gain wealth, ensure wealth from Egypt. So, though he is, seems to be a simple and very clemency, like his nature of clemency is very important and very significant. He has control over his emotions. It's all true, but he is ultimately a conqueror. Though he doesn't use his physical powers, his intention is conquering. One reason he is not dazzled by Cleopatra is that he is busy conquering countries and settling disputes. He has to appropriate all his properties, all the countries that he has conquered, and he seems to be educating and taming Cleopatra. It shows exactly how Western civilizing missions worked, the white man's burden thing, telling the natives that they are uncultured, meaning that they are passionate. Cleopatra is a very passionate creature, but she is tamed by Caesar. He tells her that this is not the way a queen should behave, and educates her on how to deal with matters, how to behave to different people in different manners, how to behave to people coming from different walks of life. All these things are told to Cleopatra by uh, Caesar. So he's clearly on a civilizing mission. He educates them to be, not to be well mannered, but not to be well mannered or good natured, but to be deceptive. That is, this point is also being discussed in lecture 2. So make sure you go to lecture 2 also. So he's deceptive because he's not good natured as he seems to be. One example that I can provide you is that he says Cleopatra's action of killing Pothinus is barbarian. Like we already mentioned that he is against killing any kind of bloodshed. That is one reason why he condemns Cleopatra, scolds her for her decision to make Tatatia kill Pothinus. He calls it a barbarian act, but he never access Rufio's act of killing Tatatia as barbarous. Like Rufio, towards the end of the play, kills Tatatia, but Caesar never condemns it. Caesar never uh, scolds Rufio, not scold, but condemns the act of Rufio killing uh, Tatatia. So this is a very important example to show the double standards that Caesar holds. So Shaw Caesar, you have to understand that is a very complex creature, much complex than Shakespeare's Caesar or any other Caesar that we can find. So that's all about Shaw's Caesar. We'll be discussing more about the characterization of Cleopatra and other elements in the play in the next lecture. Make sure you watch those lectures also. Thank you.